Ring of Bells, Chapter 1, End of Chapter 1. Those were the times during the whole long trek, the long days of hunger, and the endless walking I got used to. I even got used to my blisters, to my freezing hands and ears, and my numb feet. The snow went away, but the cold never did. Sometimes, when I felt I could not take another step, I would feel Muddy's arm around me, and she would always say the same thing. Just put one foot in front of the other, Elizabeth, and we'll get there. It was her consent mantra. When I was at my lowest ebb, I would keep saying that to myself, trying my very hardest to believe it. There were so many times when I had come close to giving up altogether. Thinking back, though, it was Marlene as much as Muddy's mantra that kept me going. Through the wind and rain, mud and frost, Marlene just plowed on. She was our pacemaker, and we kept with her. When I was walking anywhere near her, I could hear the hollow rumblings of contentment from inside her. And for some reason that always made me smile, and so lifted my spirits. When we all envisioned her ability to find food on the move, snuffling up dead leaves, tugging at what little grass was there, we took great comfort and courage from her endless patience and perseverance. And she treated us all now, Peter included, with great affection, as if we were her family. We certainly felt she was part of ours. She was forever touching us with the soft tip of her trunk, reassuring us and reassuring herself, maybe. If Peter was our guide and provider, and Muddy was our strength, then Marlene was our inspiration. Sometimes, after the long hours of walking through the darkness of the countryside, we were all hungry, cold, and tired, and night seemed never ending. Muddy would get us singing. We would sing her beloved Marlene Dietrich songs, or Christmas carols, or the nursery rhymes, or folk songs Carlyle and I had grown up with. Peter knew some of those from his Swiss mother, so he would join in then too. Of course, Carl would sing out louder than any of us, conducting everyone from the high up of Marlene. These were the moments, as we were singing our way through the night, and I felt all my fears fly away. I felt suddenly light-headed and full of hope that all would be well. I cannot imagine why just singing together should be able to do this, but it did. It did not only pass through time. Somehow it lifted my heart, gave me new strength and fresh determination just to keep going. It was the same for all of us, I think. I suppose we must have been there 3 weeks or so. We must have been 3 weeks or so into our journey across Germany, and we were making much slower progress than Peter had expected. It was the streams and rivers that were holding us up, streams we could have forded easily through. Marlene seemed quite happy to go back and forth carrying two of us at a time, but to cross the rivers we had to find a bridge, and a bridge that was not guarded, as many of them were. So whenever we came to a bridge, Peter had to scout ahead to find out if there were people guarding it, and if there were, it meant a long diversion along the river until we found an unguarded bridge. This made our journey a lot longer, and so we lost a lot of time that way. We knew that anyone and everyone who saw us or met up with us was a danger to us, but we could not avoid them altogether, however hard we tried. Even at night we did meet a few people, some walking home to their village after dark, or sometimes shepherds out in their fields checking their sheep, and once a farmer, I remember, who we came upon suddenly behind a hedge. He was trying to help one of his cows give birth, and he needed a hand, he said, so Peter got down on his knees at once, pulled alongside the farmer. It took a while, but the calf came out alive and kicking, and the farmer was delighted and shook all our hands energetically. It was only after it was all over that he seemed to pay any attention to Marlene. Muddy told him our story, and he seemed quite happy with that. We had a night in his barn, and his wife brought us some hot soup. They asked no questions, but kept bringing more and more of their family in to see Marlene. Far from attracting unwelcome attention to us, as Peter had thought, Marlene was turning out to be kind of a talesman, and she seemed to divert attention away from us, and always from Peter in particular, which was of course just what we wanted. Hidden away during the daytime, huddled together inside some shed or barn, we heard and sometimes seen fighter planes flying low overhead, but we were safe from them, always well out of sight. Day and night we had heard too the drone of bombers overhead, but like the fighters they passed us by and left us in peace. It had not been for Had it not been for ever more distant thunder of Russian guns, we might almost have been able to forget that there was a war going on at all. The deeper we went into the countryside, the quieter it became and the safer we felt. There were some days and nights so still and silent now that it really seemed to me sometimes as if the war might have ended already. We just had not heard about it. I remember my brother became ill quite quickly, weakened by his asthma. He had never been a strong child. It began one evening with a little cough that would not leave him. Muddy swathed him in blankets, and for the best part of the night he rode up on Marlene as usual. It was becoming obvious after a while that he just did not have the strength to stay up there, that he could fall off at any time. Much against his will, Muddy persuaded him down and carried him the rest of the way in her arms. Peter and I were scouting ahead, looking urgently now for a place to shelter. Anywhere would do, just so long as we could get him out of the cold. There were no lights in the houses, of course, because of the blackout, but it was a moonlit night, which is why I caught sight of a dark, looming shape of a huge building in the distance, and then the ribbon of a tree-lined drive curving through the fields towards it. From the sound of his cough and his wheezing, we could tell that Carl was getting worse all the time. He needed more than just shelter for the night. He needed a doctor. We had no choice. We knew it was a risk, but we walked straight up the gravel drive and knocked loudly on this huge front door. It was a while before anyone came, and Peter was beginning to think about the house that had been abandoned like so many others. But then the door opened, and we saw the light of a lantern. Holding it was an old man in his pajamas and nightcap. He did not look at all friendly. What questions do you have at the end of chapter 1?